The UFC has always been the proving ground for martial artists, where legacies are forged and winning streaks are shattered. But one question has emerged in recent years. Has the UFC become too protective of its stars? Recent situations might point to that direction. Jon Jones' recent back and forth with interim champion Tom Aspinall and his refusal to fight the clear #1 contender has become at best a negotiation tactic and at worst an embarrassment.
Coming up with Jon Jones t-shirts, buying a little duck, and just a little that he does, he's annoying to me. He's annoying to me. I give him the opportunity to fight me. I want to be so compensated. I want to say it, I want that fuck you money, honestly. And that's just what it is.
Sean O'Malley's rise through the ranks, featuring bouts with favorable matchups, overmatched opponents, and a surprising decision victory over Peter Yan, further deepens the star protection theory. The undefeated Khamzat Chimaev, once the most active fighter in the roster, now fights once a year, usually in his backyard at Abu Dhabi. And while not at the same scale, Alex Pereira's bout against Ankalaev, the clear #1 light heavyweight contender, is taking confusingly long to be scheduled. But the numbers don't lie. UFC pay-per-view numbers are not what they used to be in the McGregor era. Protecting their big stars is protecting their bottom line. The names with enough force to put eyeballs on the event are undoubtedly UFC's favorites, so undefeated contenders tend to take different routes to the title in order to make the biggest fight possible for the belt. This happened more recently in Israel Adesanya against Paulo Costa, and more notably on Ronda Rousey against Holly Holm, both ending in spectacular ways. So, the recent announcement of Ian Machado Garry against Shavkat Rakhmonov was actually a refreshing surprise.
They will only be able to say that this guy will fight anyone, anywhere, anytime. And the perfect example is give me the boogeyman of the welterweight division and I'll stand in there in 3 weeks' notice and I'll find a way to beat him.
With both undefeated prospects expected to go toe-to-toe at the next pay-per-view, December 7th, to decide who's in line for the next title shot, the hardcore fan base can sleep a little better knowing that a sliver of sport integrity still lives inside the UFC. But there was a time when the UFC wasn't afraid to let its undefeated contenders collide, creating thrilling matchups that tested the resolve of these rising stars. Take UFC 94, for example.
Fight that has kind of gotten overshadowed by this thing, which is another amazing fight, is obviously Thiago Silva and Lyoto Machida. Both guys 13-0, they're undefeated in this sport, which is very, very hard to do, to go undefeated in this sport, especially in the weight division that they're in. 205-pound division is probably the most competitive, exciting division and always has been and probably always will be.
Lyoto Machida versus Thiago Silva, where the UFC's official trailer for the event makes sure to show the unusually high stakes of this clash. Two undefeated light heavyweight wrecking machines, both 13-0, collided in a battle that was more than a fight. It was a statement. Machida's iconic first-round buzzer-beater knockout would propel him toward a title shot and eventually UFC gold. In a back-to-back undefeated fighter clash, Machida would face also undefeated Rashad Evans and would put on a perfect performance. The karate specialist was in a league of his own, landing virtually everything he threw while absorbing just 4 strikes the whole bout. Late in round 2, the Brazilian finished Rashad with a knockout for the ages. Welcome to the Machida era.
That was like my worst prediction of all time. Welcome to the Machida era. Probably my worst prediction.
No,
ever.
there was a Machida era.
No, not like that. Like, he lost right away.
Similarly, Jon Jones faced Ryan Bader at UFC 126 in a clash of undefeated prospects. Both men risked their perfect records, but it was Jones who emerged victorious, beginning his reign of dominance that still hasn't been defied. Jones wasn't exactly undefeated, losing to Matt Hamill by disqualification 14 months earlier.
He said he sees this fight as a battle of 2 undefeated people since he had a DQ. Yeah. So do you see it that way? And how do you feel about, risking your undefeated record right about now?
No, yeah, I definitely do. He's definitely dominating that fight. It's just a weird thing that happened. And, I don't really care about my undefeated record. It's nothing to me. It's winning the fight in front of me. Everything will take care of itself if you win that fight in front of you.
Jones displayed his trademark dominant wrestling against the 2-time NCAA All-American wrestler in Bader, finishing him late in round 2. This fight is now infamous because of the title shot given to Jones while still in the octagon, taking him and his former training partner, Rashad Evans, by surprise.
But here's the situation. Rashad Evans was scheduled to face Shogun for the title. Rashad Evans is injured. He blew out his knee. The UFC wants to give you the opportunity to face Shogun Rua for the light heavyweight championship of the world.
Another clash of undefeated rising contenders happened at UFC Fight Night 88. Thomas Almeida and Cody Garbrandt entered the fight undefeated, with Almeida at 21 wins and Garbrandt with 8 wins. The two heavy-handed, high-octane knockout artists were sure to deliver an amazing fight, and they sure did. This high-stakes match in the bantamweight division ended with Garbrandt securing an impressive knockout in under 3 minutes, cementing his rise toward title contention. After a quick knockout of Takeya Mizugaki, Garbrandt would give the MMA world one of the most amazing performances in history by schooling the once untouchable Dominic Cruz and capturing UFC gold. Fast forward to today, and the landscape has shifted. The UFC has seemingly adopted a strategy of carefully crafting matchups to build certain fighters into stars. Sean O'Malley's path to bantamweight gold exemplifies this approach. While undeniably talented, many argue that his rise to a title shot was marked by favorable opponents rather than true divisional tests. And after his controversial decision win over heavily favored former champ Peter Yan, theories about favoritism ran wild. The Jon Jones chapter is another can of worms entirely. After capturing the vacant belt against a favorable matchup in French striker Cyril Gane, Jones repeatedly denied a fight against clear #1 contender Tom Aspinall, deciding to fight #8 ranked 42-year-old Stipe Miocic in a fight very few fans asked for.
Get Stipe out of there. Let's be honest, like, the guy's 43 years old. He's had a 4-year layoff, and his last fight was a knockout loss. Granted, he's an absolute legend in the sport of MMA. He's the best heavyweight ever, like, statistically. He's the best heavyweight ever, but the guy needs to be pulled out of the race. The guy needs to be Joe Biden, mate. He's too old. No one's that interested anymore. And I respect Stipe a lot. Pull him out, stick me in.
Have you ever been fingered by an MMA fighter before?
In the post-fight press conference, Jones hinted that the much-anticipated fight might happen if the UFC can muster up some fuck you money. But his desire is to fight the smaller and grappling illiterate Alex Pereira.
I'm not really worried about the Tom fight. I'm really worried about the Pereira fight. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to do, and I think if the UFC wants to have me back, then I think that's the fight they'll make.
But the UFC hasn't entirely abandoned the philosophy of undefeated versus undefeated. One of the most anticipated matchups today pits Shavkat Rakhmonov against Ian Machado Garry. This welterweight showdown recalls the old-school UFC ethos of determining the best by pitting two unstoppable forces against each other, and not copying boxing model of protecting their sacred zero until the inevitable title fight happens. After all, one of the biggest strengths of MMA in general is that it's not an absolute disaster if you lose a fight. Some of our favorite fighters like Charles Oliveira or Nate Diaz have tons of losses, or even a dominant champion like Islam Makhachev can be knocked out earlier in his career and still be regarded as one of the top 3 pound-for-pound fighters. Georges St. Pierre, the GOAT in many people's eye, has 2 stoppage losses, but avenged both of them with stoppages as well, of Matt Serra and Matt Hughes. A loss is not the end of the fighter's championship dreams, but an opportunity to rebuild, improve, and overcome. But why has the UFC shifted away from such matchups? The answer lies in the value of the zero. An undefeated record is a marketing goldmine, a tool to sell pay-per-views and generate hype. Protecting a fighter's record has become almost as important as building their skills. However, when an undefeated streak is risked against another undefeated opponent, the stakes skyrocket. The winner's star power grows exponentially, and the fight itself becomes an unforgettable chapter in MMA history. Matchups like these are a reminder of the UFC's roots. Testing undefeated contenders against one another isn't just good matchmaking, it's a philosophy that prioritizes meritocracy over marketing. As we anticipate future matchups like Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Garry, we can only hope the UFC revisits the days of taking risks with its rising stars. After all, the greatest fighters aren't defined by their perfect records. They're defined by the challenges they overcome. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Your support on the channel has really been overwhelming, and I can't thank you enough. If you can, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Less than 1% of you are subscribed, so I would really appreciate this help from you guys. Stay safe. See you in the next one.
I'm ready to just go out there and yeah, it'll be nice to check those kicks. It'll be nice to just eat those kicks. Let him throw the kicks. Let him throw the kicks to no avail. Realize he's kicking the leg of a determined individual who's going to come down his throat and take what's his.